Hi,
Hi, Zibby.
how are you?
I'm hanging in there. It was so nice to listen to you and Elliot talk. I just felt like you said that, being absorbed into another world just for a moment. I'm sitting in their living room. I'm sitting in their both of their living rooms at the same time.
Oh, Elliot is dating like a really close friend of mine, and actually Lee, who was the first guest ever on my podcast. And anyway, so it's been just so nice to
I
see.
love those Venn diagrams overlapping, and it just makes the world seem nicer and cozier for a while, for a little bit.
But your book also accomplished that for me. I felt like I have not been swimming in I can't even think of the last time I went swimming. And your book and your sort of ode to the water and the history of it and people who have really thrived underwater, including yourself and your family and your whole history, was another way to really escape and feel immersed, not to
Uh-huh.
be, hokey or whatever, in another sort of medium, which was really great. I had so many parts that I was underlining and all this stuff.
Oh,
And just
thank
so that
you.
people know a little more about you, so you went to Harvard. When did you graduate, by the way? I had a lot of questions.
99.
99. I
Yeah.
went to Yale, but I was 98, so we probably have a lot of overlapping people. But anyway, you majored in English and American literature and language. You were in New Zealand for a while. Your 2009 book was called American Chinatown: A People's History of Five Neighborhoods by Simon and Schuster. And it won the 2009-2010 Asian Pacific American Award for Literature, was a San Francisco Chronicle bestseller, and more. You've won awards, you've written everywhere, and you love to surf and swim. So that's basically, I'm going to sum
That's
it up
me in
with
a
that.
nutshell.
That's you. I mean, that's as good as I can get. So tell me about, well, there's so much I want to know. Your parents met at a pool, and then you and your little brother started swimming early. What has the role of swimming in your life been? Like, why does it mean so much to you that you would want to do a whole book about it?
Well, of course, it's part of that romance and the mythology of our like origin story, right? Our family origin story. But we just spent a lot of our, I think I just have a very nostalgic lens for our summers at Jones Beach and swim team and becoming lifeguards like my dad. And then I think because at a certain point in time, my family atomized, my parents broke up. And then suddenly I was the only one swimming. And I continued to swim through all of these hard things in my life. And swimming then became so much more. And so I kind of realized over time that I would sort of, I'm a journalist, and so I write all kinds of stories, but I would keep drifting back to stories about swimming or stories about um, just what our experiences, how we can be transformed by the water and adventures in water, wanting to have that be a part of my life. And so I started to think about, well, what about swimming? What is it that that I could offer to the world? And so I realized that as a journalist, I can offer this personal frame, my own love of it, but then to be the guide to all of these stories elsewhere, because I want to know about other people's survival stories and history and culture and just all over the world. And so I feel like, this book is a
Oh yeah,
lot
hold
of
it.
me in it.
Oh,
It's really pretty. It's
it is
shiny, and
really
you want to
pretty.
dive in it. And that, so posing the question of why we swim, and then the book is organized in 5 different ways we can answer that question, right? So survival, first of all, first and foremost, we learn to survive the water, and then once we can, swimming can become so much more for us. So it can become well-being. It's a way of finding health and healing, and then community, competition, and flow. And so kind of taking us through all of that around the world, investigating other cultures, and also anchoring. I want it to be expansive, but also to feel super satisfying with like really, narratives that take you through each section, and that there are really great characters and really good stories anchoring each thematic section of the book. So that's what I wanted to do.
I
And
think
I
you,
hope I did.
I think you did that. I mean, I think you did that. I was partial to the parts about you. I like loved learning more, but now that sounds creepy.
Oh.
But no, I mean, you
We
painted
have
such
a
an
lot of weird overlap here. We
no,
do.
I love like memoir and personal essay, and like I just like learning more about other people, which is probably why I interview people all day long. But you talked about how like things like this. I'll just read this one quote. We were a family and then we weren't. No one in our foursome kept swimming except for me. You swam for rehab. Like, I love that sentence. We were a family and then we weren't. And that's such an interesting way to say my parents got divorced, right? This is like a class in English, right? How else can you say it nicely without like show, don't tell? Like, what can you say? But then you also, you say swimming in open water is one small way of confronting that, meaning death, of getting closer to the fire, of wanting to stay alive, of warding off death without the terror of having to do it for real. Maybe it's a kind of dress rehearsal. So I also thought that was a very interesting sort of philosophical approach to swimming, one that I would never in a million years have really thought about.
Yeah, I think that in this book, it forced me to think about why I feel so transformed and different in a good way whenever I get in the water. So if I'm swimming or surfing or just like some kind of immersion where I go, my normal routine is like get up, get the kids, the bus stop, go to the pool, or like, just and kind of refresh for the day, or go surfing. And that I need that to be a better human in the world. And I wanted to investigate why. And over the course of reporting this book, it was funny to interrogate that while I was doing the thing. Like while I would be swimming in the pool and then ask myself, what am I thinking about right now? Like, what am I working through? What is this doing for me? And have it be this like weird meta investigation of that, but also to like observe like in the present, like sensorially, like what's happening? Like, what am I hearing, feeling, seeing, and also that what that does to your mind, because like we know actually, there's all this really interesting scientific research of like how our brains respond to water, and especially when we're immersed in it, and our bodies physiologically do things, and we're tuned into our environments, like we're tuned into blue spaces, and we go to them. I mean, like we like, rent the house by the shore, or like go to the lake because being there does something to us that we know instinctively to be good for us. And so like, why is that? And so I wanted to also investigate that. And it's weird right now, right? Because the pools are all closed. And so how are we finding that solace? And so being, here in Northern California, I've been really lucky and fortunate that I can still swim in San Francisco Bay or go surfing when I can. And it's a really strange time because like, most parents, my husband and I are running this elementary school at home now, and we're expected to work at the same time. And it's just where I find that my attention and focus is fractured. And I really responded to what you were all talking about earlier about just, the subdivisions of our lives and like what's happening. And now I feel that applies so much to our attention and focus being fractured and subdivided again and again and again. And I read, I loved what Jennifer Senior wrote in the Times yesterday.
I was literally I was going to bring that up, and I was like, I shouldn't bring up another author while I'm talking to
I
Bonnie
read that
here.
and I thought, and and especially, that right now is this Zeno's paradox of microslicing our attention into infinity, and I found that it was really helpful to read that because it's impossible. It helped me to understand why it's impossible to sustain a serious thought for any period of time. And that and then she talked about flow, which I was like, oh, that's what is, I don't really understand why she's bringing that now, because I wrote about it so much in the book. And then I realized like why we're not getting enough of it or any of it in our homes right now.
Yes.
And I realized that it's true in my own house, that like the new writing is hard to come by because I can't sustain the flow necessary for that to happen. And so I just you need a lot of open space and open time to, like, that's not only just disruptive, but psychically,
Oh, I'm losing you.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
I know you spun for a second. You had a wheel.
Oh, you too. Well, this is not enough time for me to talk to you about the book. So let's regroup and do a podcast. Okay. And I have like a billion quotes that I printed out because I was like, I love this. I love that. I love this. So we'll regroup and this will become we'll do a different podcast. And so people can learn more about it. But I wanted you to at least get in front of people and hold up your book one more time so nobody has to wait for the podcast called Why We Swim. Thank you, Bonnie. And
thank you, Zibby.
There was so much more. Oh my gosh. Okay.
We'll talk.
To be continued. Okay. Have a great day. Good luck with being a preschool teacher on top of everything else today.
Bye.
Bye.